I was sitting in the doctor's office when the words hit me like a hammer. "I am sorry, but you are infertile." Every dream I had about starting a family crumbled in that single sentence. I could feel my chest tighten, my hands shake. And yet, a few months later, my wife looked at me with a smile and said, "I am pregnant." I froze. I felt an icy wave of disbelief wash over me. How could this be? I was infertile. But as I watched her happiness, something inside me clicked. I decided to uncover the truth, and the revenge that followed would be unforgettable. My name is Daniel, I am 34 years old, and until a few months ago, I believed my life was steady, predictable, and honest. I believed my marriage was built on trust. I believed my wife was the one person in this world who would never lie to me. That belief was shattered the day my doctor told me I was infertile. I still remember sitting in that small white room, staring at the floor while the doctor spoke in a calm, professional voice. His words felt distant at first, like they were meant for someone else. Then reality crashed into me. Infertile? No biological children. No future where I saw my own eyes in a child's face, or my own smile mirrored in theirs. I nodded as if I understood, but inside my chest, something collapsed. On the drive home, my hands trembled on the steering wheel. The city lights blurred as tears filled my eyes. I felt defective. I felt less of a man. I felt like my body had betrayed me. More than anything, I feared telling my wife, Emily. She was 31, warm, ambitious, and deeply vocal about wanting a family. She talked about baby names, nursery colors, and weekend trips to parks we had not even visited yet. I worried that my diagnosis would destroy the future she dreamed of. Emily and I had been married for 5 years. To the outside world, we looked perfect. We owned a modest home in a quiet neighborhood. We had dinner together almost every night. We laughed easily. We held hands in public. But behind that image, something fragile existed. Something that I had not yet realized was already cracking. I delayed telling her. One day became a week. A week became 2. Each time I looked at her, my throat tightened. I told myself I was protecting her from pain, but deep down, I knew I was protecting myself from rejection. Then came the night that changed everything. Emily stood in our kitchen, holding something behind her back, her face glowing with excitement. She smiled at me the way she used to when she had good news. My heart began to race before she even spoke. She said, "Daniel, I am pregnant." The room went silent. My ears rang, my vision narrowed. I felt like I was standing on unstable ground. I forced a smile because instinct told me to. I hugged her because that was what a husband was supposed to do. But inside my mind, chaos erupted. I was infertile. The doctor had been clear. There was no uncertainty, no possibility, no miracle. Yet there she was, trembling with happiness, talking about doctor appointments and baby clothes. My arms wrapped around her, but my heart was frozen. I felt like an actor in my own life, trapped in a scene I did not understand. Emily became both the love of my life and the first person I had ever truly doubted. That contradiction tore at me. I wanted to trust her. I wanted to believe in an impossible miracle, but logic and instinct collided violently inside my chest. That night, I lay awake beside her, staring at the ceiling while she slept peacefully. Her breathing was slow, calm, innocent. Meanwhile, my thoughts raced. Questions stacked upon questions. How could this happen? Who else knew? How long had this been hidden from me? The injustice was not just about betrayal, it was about manipulation. It was about robbing me of the truth, robbing me of choice, and forcing me into a role I did not agree to play. In that moment, I realized my life was standing on the edge of a cliff. Either this was the miracle that defied science, or it was the deepest deception I had ever faced. And if it was deception, I promised myself something quietly, with clenched fists and a burning heart. I would not be weak. I would not be naive. I would uncover the truth, no matter how painful it became. If you have ever felt betrayed by someone you trusted, hit that like button and subscribe. This is not just a story about heartbreak. It is a story of revelation, justice, and the kind of revenge that makes your jaw drop. Watch closely, because every moment counts. The weeks after Emily's announcement were supposed to be joyful, but instead, they became a minefield of doubt and suspicion. Every laugh, every glance, every whispered word felt loaded with hidden meaning. She moved through the house with a lightness that seemed too deliberate, a practiced cheerfulness that made my stomach twist. It started small. I noticed her phone always on silent when she was around me. She would step into another room to take calls, then return with that same radiant smile, pretending nothing had happened. At first, I told myself I was imagining things. I wanted to believe she was innocent, but the feeling in my gut would not let me. Every instinct I had screamed that something was wrong. Then came the first real sign. I was doing laundry one evening when I saw her purse sitting on the counter. A single folded receipt fell out onto the tiles. I bent down, almost frozen, and read it. It was from a fertility clinic I'd never heard of. The date on the receipt was weeks before she told me she was pregnant. My hands went cold. My mind screamed to confront her, but I forced myself to breathe, to think. I had to know the full story before I reacted. I began watching, quietly, like a detective in my own home. I noted her routines, the times she left the house, the people she called. Every lie, every inconsistency became a thread I could pull. She would say she was going to the grocery store, but the car would return an hour later, silent and empty. She would tell me she was at work, but her social media would light up with images from places she had never mentioned. One night, I stayed awake in the living room, pretending to be asleep. Through the crack in the door, I saw her on the phone, whispering in a voice too soft to catch fully. A name floated through the words, David. My stomach turned, my chest tightened. I did not know who he was, but my mind filled in the blanks too quickly. Fear, anger, and disbelief collided inside me, and for a moment I could not breathe. I tried subtle questions, casual mentions of her day, hoping to catch her off guard. She smiled, laughed, deflected, and continued as if nothing were happening. The facade was flawless. Every answer carefully measured, every gesture precise. I realized that I was facing someone who had perfected the art of deception. Days stretched into sleepless nights. I could feel the tension in the walls around me. The house, once warm and safe, now felt like a theater where I was the only audience member. Witnessing a performance meant to deceive me. My own home had become a stage for lies, and every sound, the creak of the floorboards, the hum of the refrigerator, even the tick of the clock felt like a signal, a secret I was desperate to decode. Then came the moment that broke something inside me. I opened her laptop, telling myself I would stop at nothing to uncover the truth. Messages and emails spilled onto the screen, each one confirming my worst fears. The words were not subtle, not hidden. They were deliberate. They painted a picture of betrayal, planning, and secrets kept from me since before the pregnancy announcement. My hands shook as I read, heart hammering so hard I thought it might burst. She had lied, manipulated, and concealed everything. Every tender word she had spoken to me now felt poisoned. The anger surged, bright and sharp, like fire in my veins. And yet, I did not confront her that night. I knew something crucial. Rage without a plan would destroy everything. I had to wait. I had to be patient. I had to make her pay in a way she would never forget, because by morning, I realized the truth I was chasing was only the beginning. What I would discover next would change everything, and I would not let her escape it. The breaking point came one sleepless night, sitting alone at the edge of our bed while Emily slept beside me, her face soft in the moonlight, oblivious to the storm raging inside me. I stared at the ceiling, eyes wide, mind racing. Every thought collided with another. Anger, betrayal, disbelief, grief. I could not reconcile the woman I loved with the lies I had uncovered. She had taken the life I thought I would share, twisted it into something unrecognizable, and smiled while doing it. I clenched my fists so tightly my nails bit into my palms. I felt my chest tighten like it would explode. My pulse thumped in my ears, loud, relentless, demanding action. I could not let this slide. I could not let her get away with it. The betrayal was too deep, the injustice too sharp. This was not just about a lie. It was about control, about manipulating the one person who trusted her completely. It was about humiliation, about robbing me of the dignity I deserved. I replayed every memory, every interaction. The smiles, the gentle touches, the whispered reassurances, they all felt tainted now. Pieces of a performance designed to keep me blind. My mind refused to rest. I imagined confronting her impulsively, screaming until my voice cracked, exposing everything in a flood of emotion. But I knew that would not satisfy me. Anger without precision is meaningless. I needed more than confrontation. I needed a plan, something calculated, something that would make her understand the full weight of what she had done. I thought about my options, turning each possibility over in my mind like a puzzle I had to solve. I could leave. I could expose her publicly. I could confront her in private and demand an explanation. Each path had consequences, risks, and uncertainties. But one thing became crystal clear. I could not allow her lies to define my life. I could not let her deception steal my sense of justice. The silence of the house pressed against me. I could hear the faint hum of the refrigerator, the distant traffic outside, the soft rhythm of her breathing beside me. It was almost mocking in its normalcy. She slept peacefully while I lay awake, unraveling, piecing together a plan that would restore balance, reclaim my power, and make the truth undeniable. I felt a strange clarity amidst the chaos. Every detail I had observed, every clue I had gathered, became a tool. Every inconsistency, every hidden conversation, every concealed receipt was a thread I could pull. I would not act on impulse. I would not let emotion cloud judgment. I would be deliberate, patient, precise. I imagined the moment when the truth would finally surface. Her shock, the realization that I knew everything, that I had seen through the carefully constructed facade. The satisfaction that would accompany her realization was almost intoxicating. It was not about revenge in the petty sense. It was about restoring order, reclaiming my life, and showing her the consequences of deception. I made a vow to myself then, in the quiet, moonlit room. I would uncover everything. I would confront her not with tears, not with anger alone, but with undeniable evidence. She would understand the depth of her betrayal, and I would reclaim the narrative of my life. My hands finally unclenched, the tension in my chest easing slightly. I sat back, breathing deeply, allowing the fire inside me to transform into focus. Rage became strategy. Confusion became determination. I was no longer a victim. I was a man with a mission. And in that moment, I knew the path forward. I would plan, I would observe, and when the time was right, I would execute with precision. I would see this through to the end. She had underestimated me. She did not know the storm she had awakened, and she was about to face it. The plan began with silence. Silence was my weapon. I acted normal. I smiled, I nodded. I asked about her day. I kissed her forehead in the mornings and wished her a good day as if nothing inside me was burning. Every word felt like swallowing glass, but I did it anyway, because she needed to believe I was still blind. First step was documentation. I photographed everything: receipts, messages, emails, call logs. My phone became a vault of truth. Every click of the camera felt like tightening a noose she could not see. My hands shook sometimes, but I steadied them. I reminded myself that patience would hurt her more than anger ever could. Second step was confirmation. Absolute confirmation. I scheduled another appointment with my doctor. Same sterile smell, same cold lighting, same reality. Infertile, no doubt. No possibility. When I walked out of that clinic, the winter air felt sharp against my face. It burned my lungs as I breathed in. I welcomed the pain. It grounded me. It reminded me that what I was doing was necessary. Third step was timing. Emily loved attention. She loved feeling admired. She loved being the center of emotional gravity in any room. So I decided the truth would come out where she felt safest and most powerful, in front of people, in front of witnesses. We had a small dinner planned with close family and friends to celebrate the pregnancy. She thought it was her moment. I made sure it would be mine. The day arrived. The house smelled like roasted chicken and warm bread. Soft music played in the background. Candlelight flickered against the walls. Laughter echoed through the living room. She floated through it all, radiant, confident, untouchable. I watched her from across the room. My heartbeat slowed, my mind sharpened. She came to me and whispered, "Are you okay? You look quiet." I smiled. "I am just taking it all in." She squeezed my hand. That simple touch almost made me lose control. Almost everyone gathered around the dining table. Glasses clinked, conversations softened. Emily stood, holding her glass with both hands. "I want to thank all of you for being here," she said. "This baby is already so loved." My chest tightened. This was the moment. I stood slowly. The room went quiet. All eyes turned to me. I could hear the faint buzz of the overhead light. I could hear my own breath, controlled, steady. "I have something to add," I said calmly. Emily smiled at me, expecting praise. She had no idea. I went to the doctor 3 months ago. I continued. I was told I am medically infertile. No possibility of natural conception. The room stiffened. A chair creaked. Someone cleared their throat. Emily froze. Her smile trembled. She laughed lightly. That is not funny, Daniel. I am not joking. Silence crashed down like thunder. I reached into my pocket and placed my phone on the table. Then another. Printed documents followed. Receipts, screenshots, medical records. I also found these. I said, a fertility clinic receipt dated before your announcement. Messages, names, plans. Her face drained of color. Her breathing changed. Short, fast, panicked. You went through my things, she whispered. Yes, I replied. Because you went through my life. Gasps filled the room. Someone stood up. Someone else covered their mouth. She shook her head violently. You do not understand. It was complicated. It was simple, I said. You lied. You manipulated. You used my trust as camouflage. Her knees buckled slightly. She reached for the chair behind her. The woman who had controlled every moment suddenly had none. This baby is not mine, I said clearly, and you knew that before you ever told me you were pregnant. The truth hung in the air like smoke, thick, suffocating, impossible to ignore. I felt no rage, only power, because in that moment the story shifted. She was no longer the narrator. I was. The room was still. Every eye was on Emily, but I barely noticed them. My focus was on her, the woman who had built her world on lies, standing there, trembling, trying to find words that could not exist. She opened her mouth, closed it, and opened it again. Nothing made sense. Nothing could undo the moment I had created. I felt the weight lift from my chest, the tight coil of anger and despair finally unraveling. The tension that had kept me awake for weeks had made every interaction feel like walking on glass began to dissolve. Relief flooded through me, warm and electric. For the first time, I felt control again. The life that had been stolen from me, the dignity I had feared lost forever, returned in this room, in front of witnesses, undeniable. Emily's hands shook as she reached toward her husband, toward the truth she had tried to hide. Her voice cracked. Daniel, Stop, I said calmly. My voice carried across the room like steel. The clarity I had fought to maintain now rang perfectly in each word. Do not try to twist this. There is nothing to explain. Everything is here. Every lie, every manipulation, every betrayal. She staggered back, her eyes wide, scanning the room as if someone else could save her. There was no one. I had stripped away every shadow she hid behind. The hum of the refrigerator, the flicker of the candles, even the soft clink of glassware became part of the symphony of her downfall. Every small sound emphasized her helplessness. I watched her face as recognition set in, slowly, painfully. The carefully constructed mask of confidence melted. I could see her trying to rationalize, trying to shift blame, trying to reclaim dignity that no longer existed in that moment. But it was gone. Every thread of deception had been pulled, and she was left exposed, vulnerable, human. I trusted you, I said, voice steady, not loud, not accusing, simply stating the truth. I believed in us, and you used that trust to manipulate me. You thought I would never find out. You thought your happiness could come at my expense. Her breath hitched. She opened her mouth again, but no words came. The room was suffocating with silence, thick and heavy. I could feel my own heartbeat steadying, the adrenaline ebbing as the rush of vindication took over. My mind replayed the weeks of pain, the sleepless nights, the betrayal, and now it all felt justified, balanced by the release of this moment. I walked toward her slowly, each step deliberate, like a judge approaching the final verdict. The room seemed to hold its collective breath. You underestimated me, I said. You believed your lies could last forever. But truth is not fragile, and justice is patient. Tears ran down her cheeks now, silent and hot. No excuses, no protests, just the raw, unavoidable reality. She could not undo what had been revealed. She could not reclaim her control. She was humiliated not by shouting or confrontation, but by the quiet, undeniable proof of her own deception laid bare. I felt the last remnants of anger transform into clarity. I was free of the burden she had imposed on me. I was validated in my suspicion, my patience, my resolve. I had not acted out of impulsive rage, but with strategy, precision, and awareness. The satisfaction was deep, profound, and calm. No gloating, no shouting. Just the steady, powerful sense of being right, of reclaiming what was mine. She sank into the nearest chair, head in hands, gasping for air. The witnesses whispered, some shocked, some horrified, some silently nodding in understanding. I did not flinch. I did not need to. The moment itself carried everything. I exhaled slowly. My shoulders relaxed. The tightness that had haunted me for months released like steam from a kettle. I had faced betrayal, navigated deception, and emerged intact, triumphant, and whole. I looked at her one last time. No words, no pity. Just the unspoken acknowledgement that she had crossed a line and I had reclaimed my life. And in that silence, I felt the profound, steady pulse of justice fulfilled. The house was quiet after that night. The echoes of voices, the gasps, the stunned silence had faded, leaving only the aftermath of truth. I walked through the room slowly, taking it all in. The kitchen where Emily had laughed so freely, the living room where she had thought herself untouchable. Every corner now carried the weight of exposure. The very walls seemed to hum with the energy of what had transpired. I felt lighter than I had in months. The anger, the frustration, the gnawing sense of betrayal, all of it had been confronted. All of it had been addressed. I realized something important. Revenge is not about cruelty or malice. It is about reclaiming control over your life, restoring balance, and allowing truth to speak for itself. Watching her realize the consequences of her actions without interference from me was far more satisfying than any confrontation could have been. Life taught me a lesson I will never forget. People will try to manipulate you, deceive you, and take advantage of your trust. They will assume that silence, patience, or love makes you weak. They will assume that kindness equals vulnerability. They are wrong. Strength is not loud. Strength is calculated. Strength is knowing when to act and how to reclaim your own dignity. I spent the following weeks reflecting on my life, my relationships, and my own values. I realized I had been too willing to overlook warning signs, too willing to trust blindly, and too willing to let others define my happiness. That ends now. I learned that vigilance is not cynicism, patience is not submission, and truth is the most powerful weapon you can possess. Emily did not deserve forgiveness. She had made her choices, and she had to live with them. I felt no resentment in that sense, only clarity. Forgiveness would have diluted the satisfaction, softened the reality of her accountability. There is no rewriting the past. There is only moving forward, equipped with the lessons learned and a renewed sense of self-worth. I began rebuilding my life with intention. I reclaimed spaces in my home that had felt invaded by deceit. I focused on my career, my passions, and my friendships. Every decision I made was guided by awareness, not hope. Every interaction was intentional, measured, and free of the blind trust that had once made me vulnerable. What struck me most was the power of patience. The waiting, the observation, the careful planning it was what turned despair into triumph. It reminded me that justice does not always arrive through confrontation or violence. Sometimes it arrives quietly, in a moment of revelation, so complete that it cannot be denied or ignored. That realization has stayed with me. I also learned to trust myself again, to trust my instincts, my mind, and my judgment. Betrayal teaches you the value of your own discernment, the strength of your own voice, and the necessity of protecting your own life from those who would compromise it. There is freedom in knowing that no one can take your dignity if you guard it fiercely, if you demand truth, and if you refuse to be deceived again. As I look back now, I am grateful not for the betrayal itself, but for the lessons it forced upon me. I am stronger, wiser, and more aware of who I am and who I will allow into my life. Karma is not always immediate, but truth, when presented with clarity and precision, is unstoppable. And that truth has given me everything: closure, justice, and a renewed sense of purpose. If this story gave you chills, hit that like button, share your thoughts in the comments, and tell us about the most satisfying moment when truth caught up with someone who wronged you. Subscribe for more stories that reveal the power of patience, strategy, and justice served.